the new science, is perceiving the reality that we live in. And how can that be? Well, it becomes pretty clear if you study the sacred geometry located in this one little image, how this can be. But to give you a direct example, because I really do believe in demonstrating things directly, this is a drawing by Leonardo da Vinci. And as you all know, the drawing part of it anyway. And by the way, Leonardo was totally involved in the Flower of Life. He was drawing the Flower of Life. He was drawing all the aspects of it. And this is how he was able to create the inventions such as the helicopter and all these kinds of things so long ago, because he understood the basic creation pattern. And anybody who understands this suddenly jumps from normal to genius immediately, because all things come into focus. There is no separation between any subject. You can take music or art or science or language or feelings or anything else, and they're all integrated through the same image pattern and the same dynamic proportions of sacred geometry. Here, Leonardo shows that if you put your hands straight out like this and your feet together, that there's a square that fits around your body. Science has shown that that square, if you measure this many people in the room, the difference between the height of your body and the width of your arms is only 1/10,000th of an inch. And that 1/10,000th of an inch is not an error. It is associated with the sequence, the mathematical sequence that forms it, which is the Fibonacci sequence. And that's another subject, but it is talked about in the book. And if you put your arms up like this, with your arms out like that, there's a sphere or a circle that will fit around your body with the exact center at your navel. The square will be centered at the base of your spine. And if you move that sphere that's centered at the navel, the center of the sphere down to the center of there, it forms a relationship that forms something called the golden mean ratio, which is the basis of all life everywhere. And by pure chance, you might say, some people would say it in this way, if you drew a circle inside this square, which is this blue area, and you drew a circle on another circle up here that is centered directly on the sphere that goes around the body, that the size of that sphere there, the gold one and the blue one, happen to be mathematically perfect to the size of the Earth and the Moon. It isn't off at all. There was a man named Kepler who thought that perhaps the planets all orbit in a certain way which is related to the 5 Platonic solids, which all come out of the Flower of Life. And he tried to show how the orbits were not at random, but that they were set there very precisely according to these geometries. But he was wrong only because he didn't have correct information. In those days, they didn't really know exactly where the planets are. Now we know really where they are, and we know their maximum orbit, their minimum orbit, and their mean orbit. And there was a man named John Martineau who wrote a book called A Book of Coincidences, just pure coincidence, that shows that all of the orbits of all the planets and their relationship to the sun and the relationships of the orbits to each other, such as the relationship of the Earth's orbit to Venus, etc., or Mars to Uranus, etc., were all based on sacred geometry. Very, very precise sacred geometry with an accuracy that's incredible, that's undeniable. An accuracy that falls primarily in the range of about 99.9% perfect. It's not an accident. It can't be. And all of its sacred geometry, and all of it is found in the Flower of Life, and all of those proportions of all the size of the planets and where they're located and moving around in the solar system can all be identified in and around your body, in the orbital fields that are around your body. NASA is already beginning to understand this now. And just a little side thing, if you notice the line that runs through the center of the Earth or the center of the body, and the line that runs up to the center of the Moon and comes down, and the line that goes from the center of the Moon to the center of the Earth, that shape, by a pure coincidence, just happens to be the exact shape of the Great Pyramid. That angle right there is 51 degrees, 51 minutes, 24 seconds. It's the precise shape of the Great Pyramid. And if you read Hermes, who wrote the Emerald Tablets, he says in there that the pyramid was created from the proportions of the earth. This proves it. Not only is the macrocosm in and around your body, but so is the microcosm. And this is what NASA has also discovered. There is something in mitosis called the 8-cell division. It goes from 1-cell division to 2 to 4 to 8. And when it hits 8 cells, it forms a pattern that looks like this. A little star tetrahedron. It's like a cube if you see it from this way, but if you turn it up on the edge, it's called a star tetrahedron. And this little pattern, the 8 cells are lined up on each one of these points of this little pattern, which comes directly out of the flower of life. And those 8 cells, when you look at it in the cube pattern, is right here. There's one of them, there's 2, 3, 4, and there's another set of them behind there, forming an exact pattern showing that the human body is actually defined in the original 8 cells when you were something so small you can't even see. And it's still there right now. And this is just one indication, though you could go on for hours if you wanted to, showing how the microcosm, the small stuff, is completely located within you. And these 8 cells, by the way, are true with all life forms known in existence, which includes, though we don't have scientific proof it, of all the ETs that are out there also. It's all based on the same principles, no matter where they came from or who they are, or where they are on the earth, whether it's a tree or a dog or a cat or a human being. It's all, the 8-cell division is the same. It's exactly the same. And through time, as studying this over many, many, many years, we began to discover that this star tetrahedral field that the original 8 cells were located in is also around the body in an electromagnetic field. And it sits precisely in the arrangement that's around here, exactly 1 hand length above the head, exactly 1 hand length below the feet. And there is this interlocking field of these patterns around there. And connecting from the bottom, running through the very center, right, entering in at the perineum between the legs, going up through the center of the body, exiting at the crown chakra, and connecting to it at the top, is a tube of energy that for each person is different, but if you take your thumb and your middle finger and put them together, that's how big around your tube is. And that tube has these little crystalline patterns that connect at the top and the bottom. And this allows access to life force energy, or prana, or chi, or ether, or tachyon energy, all the same thing. If it is accessed in a certain way, and there is a breathing pattern that the ancients knew, that and which requires certain thoughts and certain feelings that begin this field here spinning. And there's actually 3 of them there, and there begins to be a counter-rotating field of spinning motion that begins to spin around your body that forms something that the ancients called the Merkaba. And if you were and it looks basically like a flying saucer. There's a disc that comes out, and it's about 55 feet in diameter, depending on your height. And the whole energy field of all of your bodies are all contained within this 55-foot field, with the exception of some other little thing I can't get into right now. Too complex. And so I want you to remember, if you could, this breathing tube that runs through the body. It's absolutely straight. It's just like a fluorescent tube. There's very few people or religions in the world who remember this. The Tibetans do. Tibetans, Buddhists know exactly what I'm talking about, and they use this in their final steps of their initiation. This field of energy, if you were to look at it, happens to be identical to the infrared heat envelope around galactic bodies. This is the Sombrero Galaxy, and this is a disk that moves